Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Risers and Fallers Exit Interview Fantasy Football Series I'm doing with my wonderful co-host, Evan Ringler. Today, we'll be covering the NFC East, a very funky division that probably everybody wants to do a little something different in 2026. Evan, how we doing today?
Doing great, man. Hey, my Seahawks are in the Super Bowl, so I can't complain. Life is good.
What's the final score of the Super Bowl going to be? What's the prediction from the fandom here?
24-13. Not a blowout, but a comfortable win.
Comfortable win feels right. I think. Are you America's team right now? Everyone's got to be rooting for you guys, right?
Absolutely. But
Nobody
we were in
wants
this
to
spot
see-
last time too, so hopefully we can come through this time.
It's tricky, and I'm trying to find any edge I can from a betting perspective. So the Seahawks have appeared in, I want to say 3 Super Bowls. Is that right? There's definitely not.
Well, this is the 4th. Yeah.
This is the 4th, right? And there's no way the Patriots have appeared in 7 Super Bowls under Republican presidents and only 2 during Democratic presidents. The Seahawks have appeared in 2 during Republicans and 2 during Democrats. So it's clear that the Patriots play better when there's a Republican in office. Now, I don't know if that can move any sort of line, if there's any sort of way to tap into that. But if there ever was a team that could shut that up, it feels like the Seahawks defense.
Yeah, I'm not sure. You should probably look at their Super Bowl record under different presidents. That'd be interesting to look at. And you could go back to the last Trump administration as well, because they played in several Super Bowls. We got to go back to that.
Yeah, we should. They were. I just know for a fact they were. Let's see, 3-1 under Bush, and then they were 2-1 under Trump originally, and now we're back to what it could be again. So we'll see here. We'll see what goes on. We might have to go down to VPs if that doesn't work out. But you know what? That has nothing to do with the NFC East, does it?
No, not particularly. Although Nick Foles comes into play a little bit, I guess.
Nick Foles does have a little bit of action in there. I saw a tweet now of Todd Monken in 2017 saying, "Let's give this Trump guy a chance." So people are already digging up the old tweets. So that's just hilarious stuff. God, the content cycle never sleeps, and I'm grateful for it.
No, it does not.
All right, let's talk NFC East here, and we'll start with the top line metrics as we refer to them. So it kind of makes sense when you look at it. There are some interesting metrics to be found here. EPA per play, Cowboys led the way at 5th. Great year for them offensively. Eagles 16th, Giants 17th, and Commanders 18th. Would you have guessed that before we had looked at it?
Definitely not. No.
Yeah, that's fascinating. EPA per play,
a lot higher than I would have expected the Commanders and Giants to be, for sure.
Significantly, yeah. They were basically death by 1,000 paper cuts this year in how they played the game, which does feel antithetical to how it felt like those offenses were operating. EPA per pass shakes out about the same. Cowboys 7th, Eagles 13th, Giants 20th, and Commanders 21st. And then EPA per rush, it flips it on its head here. I think this is very interesting. Giants were 5th, Commanders were 8th, Eagles 15th, and Cowboys 16th. So every team top half of the league from a rushing metric standpoint. Very fascinating to see the Giants lead the way there. And then the Commanders come in at number 8. I mean, where does that coming from here? Is that offensive coordinator or is that quarterback design runs? Where do you think that metric's coming from?
I am absolutely shocked by that because if you look at their running backs suck this year. They were horrible. I guess it's just the quarterback running game. That's kind of all I can point to.
It makes sense for both of those teams, really, when you look at how the Giants and the Commanders kind of operated late season and even early season for the Commanders, because the success rate is what you would think, right? Cowboys 6, Commanders 11th, but I mean they were a low ceiling offense. Giants at 26 makes sense. So we can jump right in here. Let's start with the Eagles because they're always going to be the big draw, talented team, always dramatic, always something stupid going on. Jalen Hurts, ADP of quarterback 4, finished as quarterback 8. Saquon Barkley, ADP of RB2, finished as RB16. Tough pick for a lot of people out there. AJ Brown, ADP of wide receiver 9, finished as wide receiver 12. That one was actually shocking to me. I thought it was going to be worse. And then Devonta Smith finished ADP of 24, finished as wide receiver 30. So what's the story of this Eagles team for you?
Well, the story is tough. It's probably Saquon just regressing But I don't even think it's really him regressing. It's more about the offensive line
Yeah.
and play caller. That would be the number one storyline, I guess, is that the play caller was probably the worst in the league, Kevin Patula.
Yep.
Uh, no motion, not a lot of creativity in his
Mhm.
playbook, and we saw a significant drop off specifically for Hurts and Saquon
Mhm.
this year in their fantasy production. So I want to take a look at that.
Mhm.
Hurts's production fell. He was 21 points or more per game for 4 straight years, and then this year he
Yep.
was at 19.1 points per game. So that's a pretty hard fall off. A lot of the passing numbers are actually not bad at all, which surprised me. The rushing production took a huge hit though this year.
Mhm.
The design runs
Yeah.
per game, the rushing yards per game, the rushing touchdown rate, all of those
Mhm.
fell substantially, like 30 to 40% year over year. So that's kind of what I'm looking at specifically for Hurts.
Yeah, those 6.5 rushing attempts per game was not what anybody drafting him thinking they were going to get that kind of
Right.
shoe-in top 5 quarterback was going to get, and it really got strange. They started using they kind of got away from the tush push intermittently.
Mhm.
You're definitely right to call out the play calling. It was very unusual. It just felt like this team is going to go as the offensive coordinator goes. We saw 2023 or we saw 2022. It was very nicely done. Offensive coordinator leaves 2023. They have a crap one. Floor falls out 24. You and I both love Kellen Moore. They have a terrific year,
Mhm.
probably the high watermark year for this offense. And then 2025, it just kind of crumbles. And so that makes me really, really hesitant to want to buy back in on this team again and think that they can just continue to, the pendulum can continue to swing. I don't have anything negative to say about Sean Mannion, but I just think that you're seeing the league maybe catch on to what this offense can and can't do and how to stop it.
Yeah, I could definitely see that angle.
Mm,
I liked the Sean Mannion hire. I thought it was
mm,
a creative way to go about it, outside the box, if you will. A lot
mhm.
better than Matt Nagy, who was being discussed as
Yeah.
like a favorite to land that job. So I think that there's a chance that could end up being a really good hire. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
Could go really poorly as well. But
Yeah.
overall, I think I'm probably more bullish on this offense going into next year than you are.
Sure, that makes sense. And I mean, their ADP on Fast Draft right now, if you guys are trying to take advantage of some early ADP, some early shifts before we're officially set on a lot of these offensive coordinators, pass game coordinators, free agents. Dallas Goedert's really the only big free agent on this offense here.
Mhm.
Hurts is not paying much of a price. He's quarterback 5, and that makes sense. It feels like a floor there. If they have a good offensive coordinator, Barkley takes a hit at RB9, and then the wide receivers, not so much. AJ Brown, wide receiver 14, Devonta Smith, wide receiver 18. Any of those stand out to you?
Um, yeah, I guess Devonte Smith seems a little high there at 18.
Does. Yeah.
Um, Maybe AJ Brown is a little bit low as well.
Mm,
I guess we should probably talk about Saquon in depth a
mm,
little bit here.
mm,
Uh, it was really interesting to me looking at his efficiency metrics in 2024, where he
mm,
had obviously an incredibly dominant season, and
mhm,
2025 were an incredibly disappointing season. The
mhm.
efficiency metrics for Saquon in particular were very similar across those
Yeah.
2 years. The main difference, I think, was just the run blocking was a
Mm,
lot worse this year, and I think that's a play calling thing, but it's also an injuries thing, and also they have just an old, aging offensive line as well.
sure.
So I think that'll be key this year is adding more to that offensive line, and hopefully getting back to their great running game that they've had in the past.
Yeah, I think there's a good chance that if you look at this Saquon season and you compared it to where he was going on boards in 2024, it's a little bit more in line with what the general public thought that was maybe going to look like. A pretty
Yeah.
good year, not a Madden cover 2,000-yard season, but like the floor is just super high, much like it kind of was with DeAndre Swift when he was there. So, third in snap share, fourth in opportunity, but then the true yards per carry stuff, yards per touch stuff gets down there. He was top 5 in all
Mhm.
those. 2024, fifth in game script, which I just don't love seeing. There's so many of these things that it's going to be so much hope and prayer that it elevates in 2026. But there's a lot left to be said. This is a team that bounces back as good as any team has in this Howie Roseman era. You can't even call it the Sirianni era. Since Howie Roseman's been the GM there, they have bounced back the next year pretty significantly. So
Yeah,
Devonta Smith is, go ahead.
this is definitely an organization that I wanna bet on, just
Yeah.
because it's very smart. I trust Howie,
Yeah.
so wanted to get that out of the way. Moving on to the
Mm,
receivers,
Yeah.
AJ Brown, shocking finish. If you would have told me to guess where he finished in terms of points per game, I would have guessed like 24th or something like that.
Yeah.
And he ends up as a top 10 receiver if you look at
Mm.
if you count week 18, that is. His
Yeah.
season was honestly way better than I expected. The second half was damn good for AJ Brown.
Mhm.
And then Devontae Smith was actually more disappointing than AJ Brown this year,
Mhm.
which if you just looked at social media, you would have never known that.
Yeah, it was. That's why I completely agree. You're reading through like the points per game finishes, and it really was that November that saved AJ Brown here. I mean, he came out and obviously he was out of reading material and didn't really show for a lot of that early portion of the season. Starts hauling in some touchdowns. He has 4 in 4 weeks there, a few 300-yard games. But outside of that, he was just not giving you much. His floor was extremely low. And
Yeah.
that's also what I felt about Devonta Smith. I mean, he had one wide receiver finish one wide receiver one finish all
Oh
season
my,
long. I
ouch.
think he's down to flex play for me with Jalen Hurts and AJ
Yeah.
Brown on the field. Now, what a real wrinkle this year was that I felt like Dallas Goedert was used, and the metrics show this out too, in high leverage situations a lot more than in years past. And I think that
Mhm.
hurt a lot of other players on this offense. I wonder what this offense looks like if they don't bring him back, if he leaves for free agency. Obviously, it would be a boost. How much of a boost would be an interesting wrinkle in ADP?
Yeah, very weird season. Dallas Goddard, just ridiculous red zone usage this year.
Yeah.
That led to him like he put up 12.3 points
Mhm.
per game, only
Yeah.
10 expected points per game.
Mhm.
Just the touchdown rate was out of control, over
Mhm.
18%, which is
Yeah.
ridiculous. So I do think that we could expect more of those touchdowns to probably go to Hurts
Mhm.
and Saquon,
Yeah.
especially versus Goddard next year. Also,
Sure.
I wouldn't expect Goddard to return. That's just
Yeah.
kind of a gut feeling that I have.
Yeah, he feels like he's going to get a nice market deal considering his age, how good of a receiver he is. That feels right here. For
Mhm.
AJ Brown, my first note on here that I had for him was Happy Gilmore voice, get me out of here. Would we like to see AJ Brown on another team, or is there another gear to get back to on the Eagles?
He seems like his ideal situation would be, like, being on the Cardinals last year instead of Michael Wilson. I
Mhm.
think that's kind of his ideal, football situation is a bad
Hold
team.
on, can you say that again? Because it's so worth hearing twice. Please say that again.
Yeah, I think that where AJ Brown really wants to be is on the Arizona Cardinals, catching passes from Jacoby Brissett
Yes.
or maybe a Jameis Winston type,
Mhm.
and not winning any games. I think that's where he
Yes.
wants to be. So we should give him what he wants.
I would love nothing more. We're gonna clip that and run with it because it really is just like he is doing his all. Him and Stephon Diggs are doing all the heavy lifting when it comes to the traditional wide receiver archetype, as in a personality traits wise. So if we could get him back to that, that would be great. We got a couple comments here. Jalen Hurts sucks. How good is Jalen Hurts, Evan? How good is he?
I think he's like the 16th best quarterback in the league, something like
I
that.
think
Very
that's right.
average.
Yeah, that's
He's good at certain things. He throws a good deep ball down the sideline,
mhm.
and obviously he's a very good runner of the football, like a
Yeah,
powerful runner of the football.
yeah.
But beyond that, he
Mhm,
cannot throw on the move at
mhm,
all.
mhm.
Has to be in the pocket, or I
Yeah,
don't know. It's just a very weird archetype
yeah,
that he is, unlike any other quarterback in the league. You have to
yeah.
build a very specific offense around him.
You do, and I think they can, and I think they have, and I think they probably will again. My burner wants to know, Chuck, huge fan of your work. Do you have the biggest piece, most satisfied wife in the fantasy football community? I think these are both slam dunk yeses. Nobody would have any arguments about that. Feeling pretty good, and that's why I get to do a fantasy football show with you, Evan, on a weekday at 1:30 p.m. East Coast time. That feels like a nice place to go here. Let's pivot to our next team. Unless you have any more notes about the Eagles, we can talk about
No,
the
we're good to
Cowboys.
move on.
Yeah, let's get some Dallas in our life here, and then we can talk about the fun teams after that. Pretty funky year for Dallas. Felt right. Everybody did a pretty damn good job of living up to or surpassing, or at least within the ballpark of ADP. Dak Prescott, in particular, finished ADP of quarterback 11, finished as quarterback 7. Javonte Williams, one of the picks of the board, really. ADP of running back 37, finished as running back 12. CeeDee Lamb, ADP of wide receiver 2, finished as wide receiver 10, got close to returning top value, not quite in the ballpark. But the next guy is really the story of the fantasy football season. George Pickens, ADP of wide receiver 29, finished as wide receiver 6. He was 3rd in the NFL in yards, 8th in targets, 5 top 5 weeks, top Robin in the league. Where do we want to start with the Dallas Cowboys?
Just an incredible fantasy offense, like exactly what we want. If every offense could be exactly like this, and nobody won games, that would be awesome for me.
Mhm.
Every game was just like 40-40 ties, like
Yeah.
that Packers game that screwed me on a parlay.
Yep.
Yeah, that would be my ideal. I
Yeah.
absolutely love this offense, just incredible.
Yeah, very reminiscent of the early 2010 Saints offenses who were going 7-9 every year, and
Mhm.
Drew Brees threw for 5,000. He averaged 5,000 yards in all of those seasons. Everybody was eating. It's good to have one of those teams back. Really, I mean, you even got a pretty good year from Jake Ferguson.
Yeah.
The top line stats are a little bit better than the week to week consistency. He was a top 3 tight end for the first half of the season. And then from week 13 on, kind of fell off. Few tight end 12 finishes in there. But I mean, nobody's success really came at the cost of another player here. CeeDee Lamb basically went back to those peak Amari Cooper years, which is still a wide receiver 1, although not the wide receiver 1. But it's going to be interesting to see how people react to this team in the offseason, because their fast draft ADPs are a little bit all over the place. Dak is exactly the same. He's quarterback 11 again. Javonte Williams, who is a free agent, bear in mind, he's RB23. CeeDee Lamb is still up there. He's not paying a premium for the Pickens there. He's wide receiver 4. George Pickens, wide receiver 9. And it is important to note, again, he was in a contract year. Javonte Williams was in a contract year. Both of those guys, free agents. Most likely the Cowboys retain Pickens. It's 50-50 on whether or not they retain Javonte Williams. Do any of those ADPs stand out to you?
Yeah, so I think they probably keep Javonte and Pickens. Personally, that's how
Mhm.
I'm looking at it. If they
Yep.
do keep Pickens, then I think it's tough to justify drafting both CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens in
Mhm.
as top 8 at their position.
Yep.
Although I wouldn't have them far behind that at all. I'd
No.
probably have CeeDee as like wide receiver 5 or 6, and
Yep.
Pickens around like wide receiver 10. So I'm not really that far off.
Mhm.
Because this is just a perfect fantasy offense. They choose not to field a defense, which I love,
Mhm.
and
Beautiful.
put everything into the passing game. I absolutely love it.
Yep. I mean, when they traded Michael Parsons away, everybody was like, "Okay, they're doing this," and they did this, and it was exactly everything you wanted. And it's almost boring now that we've actually gone through the meat and potatoes. It just really is what it is. Of all the teams we've talked about so
Mhm.
far in this series, they are the most transparent, I think. They roll, if they bring these players back, they're just, I don't know how much more improvement they have to do, but I certainly would be shocked if any regression came. Pretty much the only guy that fell short of ADP was Brandon Aubrey, who was kicker 1 and finished as kicker 3. So other than that, I mean, is there a Jaden Blue conversation to be had in late round best ball drafts? Phil Maffa is around, I suppose. I just think that they're probably, this year was the fully formed marriage of the underlying EPA metrics for the quarterback, the rushing attack, and then the marriage of fantasy stats on top of that.
Yeah, so if we wanna go a little bit deeper on each player, Dak,
Mhm.
I think, is a very simple one. He's just a great late round quarterback, very
Yep.
stackable,
Mhm.
great dude to have on your fantasy team because you
Yep.
can put him with CD and Pickens and Ferguson.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Javonte is interesting because nothing really stands out in his profile at all to tell me that
Correct.
he's good. I just think he's a solid running back who happened to land in an awesome role.
Yep.
That's kind of how I see it. Do you agree with that?
I could not agree more. That's just home run stuff right there. And I don't see that changing.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think they should keep him too. He did a pretty good
Mm.
job.
Yep.
And then on the receivers, CD definitely did pay a small price for Pickens coming in and kind of taking a lot of his targets.
Yep.
Only a 3.9% touchdown rate for CD Lamb this year. That's going to go
Mhm.
up next year. He
Yep.
was significantly below his expected points per game. So I'm not super worried about him going forward. And then Pickens was the other way. He performed far above expectations.
Yeah.
Just elite per route efficiency, elite situation. Um, Pickens is awesome, and he has been for
Mm.
the last couple of years. So it's good to see that come to fruition. And then
Yeah.
Ferguson is kind of like Javonte in the way that I think he's pretty mediocre, but he's in an awesome situation.
Mm. Is there a scenario where we regret this Pickens season because it was kind of like fundamental proof for fantasy football analysts that if you take a good wide receiver out of a bad situation, he will immediately be third in the league in receiving yards and have all these touchdowns? Because it really was. We were on a heater there for a while, right? DeAndre Hopkins, AJ Brown
Mhm.
initially. There's some Diggs, right? All these guys, you just put them in these ultimate. You give Terry McLaurin a quarterback who we'll talk about, and boom, another top. There's a world where we're just gonna have to, like, George Pickens is gonna become the poster boy for all that content, right?
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Mm,
One thing I do want to note on Pickens real quick is that
mm,
people seem to think that he had like this outlier touchdown season that's going to regress next year, but his touchdown rate was below 10%. He only scored 9 touchdowns. That can go up significantly potentially.
mm.
So I'm not super worried about that going forward.
No, there's no cause for concern there, especially, I mean, this is a team that was third in pass plays per game,
Yep.
and that was part by design, part by necessity. And there's nothing in the near future that suggests, at least for 2026, that that's going to be going away. So it's all sustainable. Feel really good about all of that. What a fun team. Let's do a little would you rather here, because the wide receivers
Let's
are
do it.
interesting, right? So we got CeeDee Lamb on Fast Draft right now as ADP, a wide receiver 4. Are you taking him over Amon-Ra, St. Brown, and Drake London, who are both right behind him?
Yeah, I think I would.
Mhm.
Just because of like the fantasy situation of
Yeah,
the Cowboys not fielding a defense.
sure. Yeah, I mean, it's premium home run stuff there. All right, we'll do something similar with George Pickens. We got George Pickens at wide receiver 9, Chris Olave at wide receiver 10, and Nico Collins at wide receiver 11. What about that group?
I think right now I would probably go Olave, Pickens, Nico,
Mhm.
just
Mhm.
because of there's a little bit of uncertainty if Pickens was to leave. I think he will stay, so I'm not
Mhm.
super worried about it.
Yeah.
Uh, as soon as Pickens resigns, he would probably go ahead of Olave for me.
Yeah, that sounds like this kind of the last domino we're waiting to fall there.
Mhm.
Last one here is, let's do it with the quarterbacks. You've got Dak Prescott at QB 11. Are you taking him over Bo Nix and Brock Purdy, who sit right behind him?
Oh, that's really tough.
Mhm.
I'd say it depends on whether I have CD and Pickens on my roster.
Now
Um,
we're getting into game theory, baby.
yeah,
Yes,
it's
that's what I
yeah.
do.
Dak is like he's a awesome quarterback to stack with.
Yeah.
Um, but if you don't, then you should probably take somebody with a little more of a ceiling as far
Yeah.
as like
Oh,
rushing.
yeah. Just want to boost it up a little bit. Love Dak, and he's been a favorite of mine in Superflex leagues, Scott
Absolutely.
Fishbowl, all kinds of stuff. He's always been an anchor for me. So love that. Any more Cowboys notes before we take a quick break and come back with the fun guys?
Um, Ryan Flournoy, I think he's good. That's it.
Yeah, there we go. Yes, there is that. He was a thing for a little bit this season. Could be a fun late round flyer for best
Yeah,
ball drafts as well. So there is a lot of seats at this table in Dallas.
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
All right, we're going to take a quick 30-second break. When we come right back, we're going to get to the New York Giants and the Washington Commanders. See you in a second.
Oh, big news. Fast Draft has 2 best ball tournaments live right now. The Origins All Rookie Game for 2026. That's right. 2026 best ball is upon us. All rookies with Origins, $10,000 prize pool. And then we have our playoff Super Slam. You just pick 6 guys for the entire NFL playoffs and you let it ride. That one also has a $10,000 prize pool. Yes, things are happening at Fast Draft. The code is FAST to get a $50 deposit match. Let's go.
Let's go, and let's specifically go to the New York Giants right here, which is just the drunkest team that I think we've talked about in this series. Who they ended up wanting to be was beneficial for everybody. Now, that fell apart really quickly, and it certainly didn't have the legs that the organization wanted. Maybe fantasy managers didn't want either. But this was an this was a beautiful girl that has no fashion sense. Jackson Dart, ideal fantasy asset. Cam Scatterboo, ideal fantasy asset. Malik Neighbors, ideal fantasy asset. Wan'Dale Robinson even showed up. And then Theo Johnson, who I don't have too much to say about, but he was a metrics darling in 2024, low-end tight end 2 in 2025. I mean, tell me how you feel about this hodgepodge of talent here.
Super weird, man. Super weird team. All of their EPA numbers look quite good. All of their success rate numbers look horrible. So that tells me that they were very reliant on big plays, especially this year. Obviously, love watching Dart and Scatabo together. And once we introduce Neighbors this year, that should take it to a new level of fun. But those two have to stay healthy, or those three, I guess. All three of them have to stay healthy.
Yeah, it's going to be and this is, sometimes we put the cart before the horse a little bit with young trifectas. Certainly we've seen the talent. Certainly we've seen the ceiling here. Who the offensive coordinator ends up being and how much of this offensive line they retain is going to be a big part of what any kind of jump I think they can all make together. We really didn't get to see how they all fit. And Wan'Dale Robinson is going to be a free agent, which is, going into this season, I don't even think this is somebody I would have thought we would have been talking about because he was, the poster boy for the PPR scam in 2024. This year, he showed me things that I didn't think he was capable of. He had 4 wide receiver 1 finishes. It was a contract year, but he was very nice against man. Used down the field very effectively. He still had a low ADOT, but he was capable of the long ball. So I'm very fascinated to see what drafters end up thinking about this team that I'm hoping more people view it as a meme than actual solid bedrock of a fantasy roster.
Yeah, that's fair. The floor doesn't really exist for this team, that's for sure. On Wan'Dale specifically, personally, I've never really seen any evidence that he's actually like a very good player. I think he's okay. He does what he does. But he was kind of the only decent receiver on the roster for a lot of this season. So I think that's kind of the only reason for his fantasy success this year. But I am genuinely excited about Dart, Scatabo, and Neighbors. All three of them have very high ceilings in fantasy. But as you mentioned, the floor doesn't really exist.
It doesn't. And there hasn't really been a team like this in a while where you take these attributes or these skill sets of these 3 individual players, and then you also throw in a super athletic, Theo Johnson type tight end who is still clearly very raw. And that doesn't necessarily always translate within the first 4 years of a tight end's career. Maybe it's a late breakout prime or something like that in those mid to late 20s. But let's see here. Dart, 2nd in rushing touchdowns, 6th in scrambles, 3rd in design runs. And that was with what felt like a different guy in charge of the play calling every single week. Cam Scatabo was really fun. 9th in fantasy points per opportunity, 6th in yards created per touch. He was basically a touchdown machine though. So just like you've kind of hinted at in your analysis here, not necessarily a great recipe for consistency year to year.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Dart specifically, 3rd in fantasy points per dropback, which is very impressive to me, despite his shitty weapons. So honestly, I think that this offense could go to the moon potentially, but we don't know who their offensive coordinator is going to be. We thought it was going to be Todd Monken, but then he got the Browns job. So it's going to be really interesting to see who they hire. Scatabo, I think, is just genuinely an awesome running back. The metrics would support that as well. I think he's very undervalued in Dynasty, especially. So I think he's a great target in that format right now. And then, everyone knows that Malik Neighbors is awesome. So don't really need to touch on that.
Yeah, I would say the best part about what happened to Cam Scatabo, if you could even say this, is that it happened at a time early enough in the year that I think there's little to no worry about his 2026 availability and productivity coming on. Same thing for Malik Neighbors. I mean, this team snake bit throughout this year, but I don't expect that to be, I expect that to be long in the rearview mirror once we approach August drafts. And I think you're seeing that in the fast draft ADP as well. Jackson Dart, QB 10, Cam Scatabo, RB 21. So maybe that injury is still a little bit too fresh in people's minds. I think that's a little low. Tyrone Tracy, who's a nice, effective third down backup, utility back, what have you. He's kind of way off the board, RB54. Malik Neighbors, wide receiver 8. Wandale, wide receiver 42. And Theo Johnson, tight end 18. So there is equal amounts of optimism and maybe injury pessimism baked into some of these ADPs.
Yeah, Scatabo seems like an awesome value at that ADP to me. Wandale even in the 40s after he finishes like a top 15 receiver. That one's kind of funny to look at, but I don't necessarily think the ADP is wrong there. Just kind of an interesting dichotomy. Personally, never been really a Theo Johnson guy. I know he's very athletic, and maybe he could get there someday. He had a pretty solid season this year, but my God, the metrics, like the per route metrics for him, have just been horrible his first 2 years. And that's something I rely on a lot. So
and he had like 20% of his productivity on a tipped ball on a broken screen, like on a broken over the middle pass that he took to the house. So I'd rather be a year late than a year early on a guy like that, but I certainly can see the range of outcomes. And I think that's the case with a lot of these guys too. So let's do the Malik Neighbors stuff is interesting because you can basically take away nothing from this year other than he looked like he was probably still going to be very good again. So what the chemistry is with Dart, I'm not worried about because we saw Dart do well with a lot of other guys that have not necessarily produced or been effective. So I think we can kind of use that Wandale productivity and efficiency and apply that and force multiply that to Neighbors. So I'll ask you here. We got Malik Neighbors at wide receiver 8. Oh man, see, this is where it gets weird because it just doesn't have the same staying power. Justin Jefferson at wide receiver 7, Drake London at wide receiver 6. Which of those guys do you like? We'll do the opposite. We'll have Malik Neighbors on the low end.
Interesting. I think I would go London over the other two pretty comfortably. Jefferson versus Neighbors is really interesting. I think I might go Neighbors there.
I think I would too. We saw a disgusting floor from Jefferson this year, and I think that's just to use this phrase again. If they run JJ McCarthy back, I would rather once again be a year late to that than a year early. So that's kind of where I'm sitting on the Justin Jefferson stuff there. All right, let's do this one. Cam Scatterbu, RB21, DeAndre Swift, RB20, Travis Etienne, potential free agent, RB19.
That's really hard because I think Swift and Scatterbo are both awesome values there. I would probably give the nod to Swift over Scatterbo, just being in that awesome Bears running game that I expect to still be awesome next year.
Oh, it's going to be the talk of this year is going to be how you should have taken a running back in the first round, and you probably should have for a lot of these guys. But man, when you look at how this board's shaken out, around pick 36 through pick 60, Kyron Williams, Trevion Henderson, Travis Etienne, DeAndre Swift, Cam Scatterbu, your favorite, RJ Harvey. It's going to be a really, really fun year again. And that's not even talking about the rookies.
Yeah, to me, I hate all the guys you mentioned except for Swift and Scatterbo. I love those two at ADP. The other ones I don't like at all.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. We're going to have some more good off-season content then if that's the case here. All right, the last one we can do here is Jackson Dart. And, Jackson Dart's in a very interesting range. Would you take Jackson Dart at QB 10 over Trevor Lawrence at QB 9 or Justin Herbert at QB 8? I think I know the answer here, but the audience doesn't.
No way.
Yeah. And what would your follow-up why be to that no way? Because it's a pretty emphatic no way.
I'd say injury risk is the number one thing. I would like to see Dart play a full season without getting like 5 concussions. That would be nice to see. And I just think the other two are more established in them being good. Like I think Dart was very good this year for a rookie. I would just like to see more of a sample size.
Sure. And those two in particular, you actually do get some rushing production, even if it isn't your traditional, Konami code rushing that you get from the top dogs. You do get some leg usage, especially in the red zone from Herbert, from Lawrence. So
also the play callers there are way better than whatever John Harbaugh is about to bring in. Mike McDaniel and Liam Cohen, just head and shoulders above whatever Chargers or Ravens retread. Probably Greg Roman, right? That's who it's going to be.
If it's Greg Roman, we're going to have him on the pod. He's going to be available for podcasting, and we're going to have him on, and we're going to get the scoop. I will make that my mission this offseason. All right. The comments are contributing a lot more here. Big Cat Small Cage said neighbors in Dart will feed families. Wow. We have another sucks here. So Jackson Dart sucks. We'll see if that
Is this
trend
guy just
continues.
like a huge Jaden Daniels fan or something?
We're going to see if he's a Jaden Daniels or a Dak Prescott fan, because he didn't say Dak sucks.
That's true.
So let's transition here now as we get to the Commanders, which is a really hard team to talk about because there's really just nothing we can take away from this season, I don't think. Cliff Kingsbury's gone. We hardly saw any Jaden Daniels, and when we did, he was injured or very far from his real self. The running back room was a huge question mark all season long. We got the old Terry McLaurin was back. The pre-Jaden Daniels Terry McLaurin was back in our lives. And then Deebo Samuel kind of made like a, when you see like a TV show on Fox or ABC, you see a commercial and it's an actor that is like on his 9th TV show. And you're like, wow, they're giving him a show. That's how it kind of felt like this season was from Deebo Samuel. It's just kind of like a guest appearance because he is a free agent. And then Zach Ertz still holding the line. God bless his soul. Where do we even begin with this Commander season?
I guess we should probably start with Jaden Daniels, their superstar. Although, actually, I just want to start by saying that this roster is brutal, in my opinion. They need good young players all over the roster, every position on defense, pretty much every position on offense except for quarterback. They are just lacking good young players. So I don't expect this to be a quick turnaround and them getting back to the NFC Championship anytime soon, personally.
No.
Do you see it the same way?
No, absolutely. This is a team that I thought completely overachieved the year before. I thought that those takes from that offseason were based in logic, and then what's the term I'm looking for here? And then they were misspelled by just a hot Jaden Daniels. And I didn't think he had a lot. I thought they did a huge disservice to him this offseason from an offensive talent standpoint. They brought in Laramie Tunsil, which I thought was a weird choice considering he was being sent from a team that needed offensive line help more than any other team in the league. That didn't pan out like, it panned out like a lot of people thought it would, not like a good play. And I have such a bad taste in my mouth because I do think this is a high floor offense that is not quite getting there.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. The Jaden Daniels, it's not even really an interesting season to talk about.
All right, we got the answer here.
Jaden Daniels sucks. Dang.
Yeah.
All right, I guess he's a Cowboys fan then. That kind of tells you right there. But yeah, I don't think it's a particularly interesting Jaden Daniels season to talk about in any way other than he missed games for 3 different injuries. He had a knee sprain, a hamstring strain, and the bad dislocated elbow as well. And that was kind of the one major knock coming in on Jaden Daniels was the injury risk is a real thing.
Yeah, now you have to be concerned because probably the most comfort you would find in this offense was who was calling the shots, and he's gone. And then, Jaden Daniels, for all his injuries, he had the most rushes per game of any quarterback. And if you're taking him at QB3 like he had an ADP of QB3. That is brutal. He still showed that he can play. I think he was second in deep ball accuracy, which you like. You like a guy who runs a lot and can throw the ball deep. Let's get him some guys that can actually take advantage of that because Terry McLaurin is 30. Like I said in the previous segment, we saw Terry before Jaden Daniels. Deebo Samuel, which is an interesting year how they used him. He was 8th in slot snaps, 1st in design targets amongst all wide receivers. And that felt like the only way they were going to be able to get him the ball was for him to be designed usage. Just weird. He's a wide receiver too in most efficiency metrics. And then really the sneaky storyline of this team is the running back room and the weird season that Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt had. The random spot starts they were able to get out of Chris Rodriguez, Jeremy McNichols. You're going to see Austin Eckler and McNichols both probably depart as free agents. And so is this a team that heavily pursues running back? Do they bolster the offensive line? Do they, for the love of God, bring in a new tight end that can break a tackle down the field? I just don't know. What do you want? What would you like to see?
I would like to see a receiver or a tight end first and foremost. I do want to touch briefly on Terry McLaurin, who I kind of disagree with you on. I actually
Mhm.
thought when he played this year, the metrics were awesome. So,
Yeah.
I look at that and
I was referring more towards the production that we were getting from Terry
yeah,
prior to Jaden Daniels, where it was like, please get this guy a quarterback because I know he
right.
can do something. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
Fifth in first downs per route run, 12th in first read target share. So the
Mhm.
metrics were quite good for Terry. I'm feeling
Yeah.
good going into next year as long as it's all reliant on Jaden Daniels staying healthy.
Yeah.
And then on Debo, I totally agree that the design targets is pretty much
Mhm.
the only way for him to put up fantasy points is
Mhm.
for them to just kind of throw it to him for no reason because they have nobody else.
Mhm.
I don't think he's very good anymore, but
Mhm.
that's just kind of all they had left was Debo Samuel design targets.
Yeah. Do you have any excitement for David Blau coming in here as the offensive coordinator? Very young. He is 30 years old, if I'm not mistaken, and he has already been elevated to offensive coordinator of the Washington Commanders. He will turn 31 in July. And this is a guy who just was playing football for the Detroit Lions in 2023 on Christmas or on Thanksgiving Day, if I'm not mistaken here. He spent some time as the assistant coach with the Commanders. That's really his only experience. So you could say that he's only learned from Cliff. He was a Cardinals. He played under Cliff in Arizona. He played under KOC in Minnesota. We don't really have anything else, any other data. I mean, should we just chalk this up to net neutral?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, there's not a whole lot to go on for sure.
Mm,
I do like when teams hire younger coaches and just take a risk,
yeah.
especially when you're in a situation like this. They have nothing to lose because their
Mhm,
roster is so bad. Might as well
mhm,
take a risk on a young coach. Maybe he ends up being awesome and you keep him for a while.
yeah.
But yeah, not a whole lot to touch on Blau
Mhm,
specifically. On the running backs, though, we should touch on that. Ja'Cory
mhm,
Cross-Gamere, really weird season. Super
yeah.
explosive on the ground. I think he is a very explosive runner of the football.
Mhm,
Useless through the air. They don't trust them to do anything as
yeah.
far as a receiving running back. And I think this is probably who he's just going to be. Because of that uselessness through the air, he
Mhm,
will be a very limited player, but he'll have unpredictably huge boom weeks that are
mhm.
just, you won't see him coming.
No, not at all. And you just have to wonder if the Chargers hadn't made the playoffs and Greg Roman was fired and made available before January 10th. This was the most Greg Roman-y offensive hiring you could have ever
Yeah.
pictured when you
Yeah.
consider the type of quarterback, veteran head coach, and Dan Quinn. So let's all just be potentially grateful, although that might have been it might have been good for Jaden Daniels. Who knows?
Maybe. Maybe. And then on Chris Rodriguez, I just wrote down that he's like if Bill wasn't explosive because he
Mm,
doesn't catch passes at all
yeah.
either. So yeah, I don't think he's good at all.
Yeah. They had one they had four guys that could all do one thing, and it made it
Yeah,
very difficult to have them on the field consistently. You kind of knew what the play call was going to end up being when
good
certain
point.
guys
Yeah.
were on the field. Just a wash season from a team that a lot of people were very excited about, and their ADPs are reflective of that in fast draft right now. People are expecting a bounce back from Jaden Daniels. He's quarterback 4, Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt, RB 43, Terry McLaurin, wide receiver 36, and Debo Samuel pays the heavy price at wide receiver 63.
Dang. Um,
Yeah.
I think Terry's an awesome value, wide receiver
Yeah.
30. I would definitely be drafting him.
Yeah.
Um, Debo, you could argue you could draft him as well, but
Mhm.
personally, I could see it falling off quite hard. So I
Sure.
wouldn't want to waste one of my, it's a shallower format. So you only have like probably 5 receivers, maybe
Yeah.
6. I wouldn't want to waste one of those on Debo Samuel personally.
No, no, I don't think so at all. There's this top heavy offense with some very clear consolidation. So just make the moves that you have to.
Yeah, and I
Uh,
wouldn't be drafting Bill probably either in that format.
yeah.
You could argue you could draft Jaden with Terry,
Mhm.
but I think Jaden's a little overvalued right now as well.
Mhm.
There's a lot of great quarterback options further down the board.
Yeah. And I think the thing that looms over this entire whatever version of this Commanders team that you could call them is that this is a team with a defensive head coach that finished 31st in EPA per play defensively. It's a team that's old It's a team that doesn't have a lot of any young talent really that you can point to and say this is our future. Most of their stars are free agent acquisitions as of recently. So there's what I'm getting at is that there's a lot of pressure, I think, on this team to show signs of life, and that can be good in the short term for fantasy results. It's also could be a team that could be blown up here at any given minute.
Yeah, personally, I think Dan Quinn gets fired around like week 8 next year.
Yeah.
That's how I see it going.
Yeah, David Blau will be the youngest head coach in NFL history, I think. That'd be fun. It'd be an interesting experiment. All right. Any more notes? Does anybody in the chat thinks anyone else sucks? Feel free to drop it in the comments there. We're also
I guess we could talk about Jimmy Toots, Hurts as the 4th best quarterback in the division. I would personally have him 3rd, I think. I would go Dak, then Jaden, or maybe Jaden, then Dak. Those two are tough because, of course, it's just injuries with Jaden. And then probably Hurts at 3 and Dart at 4, just because I haven't seen it a ton yet.
Yeah, you've seen fun Dart, but you haven't seen the Hurts that I've seen in at least 2 seasons elevate to I would say he was very clearly a top 7 quarterback in both of those seasons. Career-wise, I like him closer to where you said QB 16, but I want to see the ceiling before I anoint somebody when I know what their floor is.
Yeah, for sure. And just the way that Jalen Hurts has played in his 2 Super Bowls as well, I think that means a lot to me as well.
Yeah. He's
obviously been nowhere close to that stage.
Yeah, give it some time. They'll get there.
Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate you stopping by for our NFC East exit interview. Evan, tell the people where they can find you.
At Evan Ringler FF on Twitter. Besides that, all my works at playerprofiler.com and on this channel. Go check out Fast Draft as well. We currently have the Origins Rookie Only tournament live right now. It's essentially a plus EV best ball tournament, so go play in that. And then the Rabbit just launched this week as well, which is the fastest traditional best ball kind of game on the planet. So yeah, go play in that as well.
The Rabbit is the new standard. It's the new meta. I'll be looking forward to catching you guys all over there. Promo code Chuck. We'll get you a nice little match off there. I am Chuck Bass. As always, we appreciate your all support. We will be back next week with our final 2 divisions as we wrap up this series. So you guys have a good weekend. Stay safe out there, and cheers.